Hello and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Oliver and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Gus and Nate. Tonight we'll be staying in room 131, Halloween, the slasher classic directed by John Carpenter. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we try to survive Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What's going on, all you trick-or-treaters? Thanks for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to smash that like button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast app, whatever else you might be listening on, subscribe to us so you get notifications when we're dropping new videos, which takes us into the second video of our Elite 8 of our horror movie showdown. Last week, we did good old The Exorcist, and that takes us to Halloween, directed by John Carpenter. Fun movie, slasher movie. Where were you guys on the first night where you watched this? How old were you?
Ro, you want to go first?
I actually don't remember anything about it.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay, so Halloween and Michael Myers is something that's been in my life, and I know about it, but I didn't actually seek it out on my own until I was already an adult. I saw the Rob Zombie movies, and I don't even know who made the other ones, but like I've seen those as a kid, but I had not ever seen the original until I was an adult, so I had to seek it out for myself.
Interesting.
So probably like somewhere between like 5-7 years ago, I was like, I need to see this movie on Halloween night. So I watched it for the first time as an adult on Halloween night, like 5 to 7 years ago.
As you should. Very cool. What
I
about
remember
you?
now. So my mom, this kind of goes to the story that you talk about, like when your mom takes you to movies you shouldn't have seen. My mom took me to watch H2O.
Non-canon nowadays.
Because for some reason, yeah, exactly. Because for some reason, she always liked the horror movies she did like. She always liked the Halloween franchise for some reason. So the first one that I watched was that, which made no sense, obviously, to watch it. But then as I grew up, I went back and watched this one, the original one, and it definitely was my favorite one. I mean, the score is definitely something that still stands out to me to this day.
Yeah.
You know?
I actually didn't see this when I was super young because I think I saw it when I was in like middle school, so I was probably like 12 or 13. But at this point, I had already seen all of like the other slasher classics, like Texas Chainsaw,
Friday the 13th,
yeah,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Exactly, all those. And this ended up being, well, besides Texas Chainsaw, this ended up being my favorite. I like this more than Nightmare on Elm Street, and I for sure like this more than Friday the 13th. No shade meant to be thrown, but it will be probably.
We were more of a Texas Chainsaw and Nightmare on Elm Street family.
Yeah.
Like, I think Nightmare on Elm Street was the one my mom said had the like biggest standout scares to her. Like the one of Freddy running down the like alley and his arms get all long and he's scratching.
Spooky.
Like for my
The
mom, that's
spaghetti
like
arms.
that's my nightmare.
That's
that
funny.
one still gets her to this day. So we were down with Halloween, but it just wasn't my family's favorite.
I feel you. We always watched Texas Chainsaw. Like Texas Chainsaw was my movie. Like I still love that movie. But once again, like The Exorcist, I watched this movie by myself in my room, and it just I don't know, it just kind of hit. It's obviously like rewatching it for the podcast. I think it's a little less scary than maybe I remember it being. And I know that we've talked about it, but the ambiance and the vibes that this movie is able to create, especially on such a small budget, I think is why it holds such a special place in my heart. So,
And right now we're watching it as we're recording, and I kind of noticed this on the rewatch for the pod that I really liked. They put the mask on the camera as he puts the mask on.
Yeah.
I really like that effect, and I think that's like some of the stuff that you talked about. I still think this movie works because it kind of has this low budget love to it that like all those B horror movies that people kind of like really like all kind of seem to really just want to draw the ambiance from this movie. This is one of those like really, really good B horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, this is an independent movie for sure. Like I was reading when I was doing research that John Carpenter got paid $10K for the movie.
Wow.
They said the budget was like 300,000.
Yeah.
But he only got 10K, and he directed this, he wrote this, and he did the score. And they got to, I mean, that's like that's got to be the best deal in movie history
kidding.
ever, maybe, because this is so iconic and it spawned so many different things. Like this is probably one of the biggest like pieces of horror IP that exists.
For real.
And this thing's beat into the ground. Like we're still getting remakes. We still have Halloween Horror Nights mazes. I mean, I'm sure if you go to Target right now, you can find one of those Funko Pop T-shirts of Michael Myers or something. You know,
I'm telling you that my first intro to it was H2O, which is already a deadbeat reboot already at that time. You know, and then we are already getting like the new one came out this year, right? Or that last year?
it was last year. And
Yeah,
it was one
exactly.
of the worst movies of the
It
year.
is one of the worst movies of the year.
Watch that. It's so bad.
And it just sucks because this first one is just so much better than even that.
I mean, the first one is like an untouchable movie. And I'm going to be honest, this is not really my thing. Like, this is one of those movies where I can respect how good it is and I can appreciate it, but it is not something I really ever seek out. And part of it probably has to do with it not being in my life for very long. So maybe the older I get, I'll like it more. But yeah, it's just, I mean, peace and love, respect. I totally get it. You know, it's just not really my thing. But it's an incredible movie. I would never try to deny that. It's more of a personal taste thing with me. But I know you really like this movie, right,
Yeah,
Nate?
no,
Like
I really do,
When you
yeah.
got here today, the first thing you said was like, Halloween's so fucking good.
I haven't seen it in years. Like, it's probably been like 4 or 5 years maybe since I've seen it last. And I don't know, it just has a lot of different pieces that I really like about it. I like that it feels super low budget. And I think a big part of me is like that feeling that you get like the small town Halloweens. Like, it almost reminds me of like Hocus Pocus. Like, you still get like, you know, the day leading up to it. Like, I really like it. And I think another part that really interests me about this movie is like, this is what I wanted to talk about when you talked about last week on the Exorcist episode, about how like, kind of like the times and like what was happening out in the world, like kind of relates to this movie. Like the 70s were some of the most like populated with serial killers in America.
That's
ever.
when it started, quote unquote.
Exactly,
right?
right? Or certain people started taking notice of it.
I've seen Mindhunter.
Yeah, right? You know what I'm talking about? David Fincher, man. But like, I think this is why this movie was probably so scary for a lot of people, is because at the time, like, this was legitimately happening. Maybe not
Good
like
point.
the evil levels of this movie, or you know, you could argue against it, but I just think that cultural hold on people because of that, I think it's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, just like The Exorcist, I think you're making a great point that these are realistic fears of the people from that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, dude, if you see stuff like that Richard Ramirez or John Wayne
exactly.
Gacy or Ted Bundy or whoever, see, we know too much about this already. Like,
Truly.
like the fact that we just have this on the top of our head, like I could name 5 or 6 serial killers, just goes to show you how at this time this was such a, like, dude, Fox News would eat this up if this was
100%.
now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you would hear about this 24/7, how a serial killer is going to come and get you in the middle of the night. So, I mean, I totally get why this movie works, and I do like a lot of it, but it just leaves me feeling a little empty. But it's so good, too.
This movie is.
I can't explain that enough, that this is a good movie, but it's just not my personal taste.
I totally feel, because I even said, like, I think it's probably the wrong way to describe it, but what I said earlier when I came over was that this movie's almost like a comfort movie to me. Like,
Yeah, that's so weird.
I know, like, isn't that
You're one of
weird,
those
but-
Midsummer girls? Like, that's my
Yeah,
comfort
seriously.
movie.
Like, what the
I
fuck?
see.
What's wrong with me? Like, no,
I see what you mean, though.
But
It
like,
makes
it
sense.
is. It just makes me feel like this is a horror movie. Like, this really is a movie that laid the foundation for everything else that came after it. And I think and it just does it so perfectly, I think. So I guess that's what I mean by that. It just makes me feel like, this is a nice
It's
little horror
influenced
movie.
so much that it can't help but, like, I think it's why it's on that pedestal, you know? Like, I feel like this is a movie that I think, like, your favorite director would like, or, I mean, I looked it up today, dude, because I was typing in Halloween on Google, and there's showtimes, like, okay, on June 3rd, somewhere in our area, I didn't see exactly what it was, like, this is going to be showing in theaters, and you can go see
Crazy.
it. So this is, like, a movie fan's movie. And it's like the most movie a movie can be. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like even though it's low budget, it takes like every dollar you can tell was put into like caring about this movie. And it's obviously because of John Carpenter. But yeah, I mean, this movie is just really good, and I don't understand why I don't like it more. But I don't know. Maybe we'll get to the end of that by this pod.
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
I think it might. What I see it as is the slasher trope is a little overdone at the age that we were at. I mean, like by the time like Scream never resonated with me too much. I think it's like
I get it though.
the first one. Like I get it, it's cool, but I think that it's kind of hard now to go back because we didn't like as a kid. Even as a kid, we already kind of had all those ones that kind of suck. But then this one's like the original one, you know what I mean? Like the original, one of the original slashers where I think it just, it has that cultural hold that you're talking about. And it's realistic. And I think there's just something about how it's independent that just makes it seem so much more like grounded, and it still holds up really well. I had watched this like a couple months before we did the podcast.
Just for fun?
Just for fun. Like kind of like the same thing, like just throwing it on. And I don't know. Like I always like to see it at least once a year.
So that comforting thing that you guys are talking about, I do think it's because they're suburban dudes. You know what I mean? I just think it has that comfort that you would see in like, okay, I felt the same way about the beginning of Poltergeist because that like,
exactly.
that perfect suburban area that looks just like E.T. and looks like Halloween. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's that aesthetic and choice of setting. You know, and like I looked it up too because I was like, is Haddonfield a real place? And there's not one in Illinois. There's like a Haddonfield, New Jersey, but this is actually filmed in here in California.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the reasons it also feels comforting because in our youth we've all spent time hanging out in suburban areas. You know,
there was a for a couple of years you could go visit this house, and it's close to us.
Really?
Yeah.
This terrifies me. Oh no, I need to move.
So it's funny, just like not even thinking about it, that might be it. There's just like a atmosphere to it that is comforting.
Yeah, I mean, like another movie, I think that also takes place in SoCal and has that comforting feeling, even though the movie's not, is Donnie Darko.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where I just think it also because they're high school students too, right? Like that does have something to do with it. And I would say, like, since this is one of the original slasher movies, and I guess the other ones that would be considered early slashers are like Psycho, Texas Chainsaw, and Black Christmas.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting that it just goes to show you that Halloween is so much better than Black Christmas. And Black Christmas had these tropes first, but it doesn't get the credit that Halloween does. And I just think it's because Halloween just kind of grabbed the title of like, no, this is how it's going to be done going forward, and not Black Christmas.
Yeah.
I will say it has to do a lot too, cinematography wise. It's just shot better than a lot of those movies. Like creatively wise. Like right now we were watching it, there's a scene which is still kind of unexplainable, where he starts driving. But he throws the lady out, and it kind of has that giallo, like there's just red light, like because of the car technically, but there's this like neon light there, and it just gives it this ambiance that we do like from other horror movies and those kind of like those cheesy kind of like Italian
still
movies.
Using that same shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yep. And it's all these years later.
It's on the floor, like the camera's on the floor, and it's just light coming from either the left side or the right side, whatever, and it just works. But this is one of the, for me not knowing, might be the first ones to do, like one of the first ones to do it, those shots.
What I was gonna say actually was I think like the high schoolers in this movie, because this is the one that like set the standard, I actually think that these high school characters are pretty innocent as opposed to some of the other slashers, where I think the characters are completely unlikable. Yeah. And like these kids, it kind of feels like they're living in like Dazed and Confused, and it just so happens that a slasher movie happens to them. Like they feel very lived in, and like they're actually friends. You know what I mean? Like you have the stuff of like Lori smoking in the car, like and she's two-handing the joint. It's like one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Yeah. And then they drive up on the dad, and like they're hotboxing. You know what I mean? And no smoke comes out. Like that was just funny.
I will add to that point that they're also believable high schoolers, which is something that I think you've kind of touched upon in some of the movies now, that when you get an actor that just looks like
it's not a 46-year-old guy playing a 12-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. It's not Grease. It's not Grease
playing a high school. Yeah, Grease is probably the most egregious offense I've ever seen against casting a teenager
of high schoolers.
Thing. Hell yeah, like dude had crow's feet and wrinkles and shit. Like what are we talking about?
He's
here?
16.
Guy who smoked 3 packs a day.
Dude, the other gang, that guy. Oh my
But yeah, like
God.
even right now it's playing and she's sitting in the classroom and all the people who are there, that this does seem like they're all high schoolers, you know?
I hope this is okay that we're watching this while we record, right?
I mean, yeah,
I'm sure it is. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
no?
right.
But I do like having it on, and like we've mentioned that it's on, right? But I think the opening sequence of this movie is
Yes.
fantastic.
That's what I wanted to talk
a really
about,
yeah.
great opening sequence, like an all-time.
It's perfection,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael Myers is a kid we see earlier that I think he's got a problem with sex. Like a lot of these slasher movies tend to have that, and it's probably because this set the standard. But it's like some of the characters who get killed are having sex. His sister is naked in the beginning when he kills her, and I mean, like, it's something that I don't even know if is explained upon later, but I just find it really. Where does this come from? You know, this idea of like the killings all being like somewhat sexual in nature. Like
Right.
maybe it's because of the actual serial killers at the time that they're kind of riffing off of, but I do think it's kind of weird.
No,
And
I
especially that it
agree.
became so prominent like later on. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't have a total explanation for it, honestly.
I
no,
guess-
it's okay. I mean, we're not here to
Yeah.
answer these questions.
I guess
I'm
it would
just
make
saying.
sense though. This one it might have set the standard, but I don't understand why it's been an overused trope at
Probably
this point.
like Psycho, right? Because in Psycho, he's kind of in love with her in the beginning, like Norman Bates. Like he's
Yeah.
kind of flirting with Janet Leigh,
Which I'd like to add.
You
Yeah.
want to bring it up that Janet Leigh is.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee
you know
Curtis's
this
mother.
if you're old, but if you're young, you probably don't know this. But Janet Leigh, who starred in Psychos, Jamie Lee Curtis's mother. So that's really cool that they're two of the most iconic, like, leading ladies in a horror movie.
Correct.
And mother-daughter. I hope, is the granddaughter going to do something?
I know.
Does Jamie Lee Curtis have a daughter? This is something we need to know from
Be a
you.
goth.
No.
That guy was
Somehow
sick.
it's Jenna Ortega.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love that.
We were talking about, this movie being kind of realistic, and I feel like that has already kind of fallen apart because we have Michael Myers just walking around in broad daylight. And don't you think it's kind of weird that... Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say this is where it kind of like he's also using like a police car the whole time, and nobody kind of notices that.
The car from the
Penitentiary-
asylum or wherever the hell he
Yeah,
is, right?
the car that the detective was using to come to pick him up, actually, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Anyways, but he's just driving that car around with the mask on. And it is very unrealistic.
It's Halloween, bro.
This is a Cinema
Alright,
Sins level critique, and this is nitpicking, honestly, but it is hilarious because of how later on Michael Myers is viewed as this like entity, right? Like he's not even human, but somehow he knows how to drive a stick shift. And I've always thought it was cool too how like the psychiatrist who's working on him was like, I've been working on him for 8
Dr.
years.
Loomis.
Yeah, and he's
my
nothing but
favorite.
pure evil, right?
He's
He
my
really
favorite.
is a sick ass character.
Yeah.
Like,
Badass.
he's one
cool.
of the great character actors of all time, Donald Pleasance. But I don't know if you've seen this critique, but I think it needs to be brought up is why do they always move him on his favorite night of the year? Right? Like going forward after this.
Oh, I
Why
don't
would
know.
you move him on
Halloween.
Halloween night,
Yeah, I don't
right?
know. It's so stupid.
And I think this movie does a good job of not going too far into all of this stuff because the other movies do, and then it makes no sense.
Yeah.
right?
That's what I really like about this movie is I feel like this movie is a little bit of a mystery at first. It's like, I mean, when this came out, like, who is Michael Myers? You know, like, people didn't know.
The figure.
Yeah,
What
right,
do they call him?
the
Something-
shadow
yeah.
or something, or the shape or some shit like that.
Shape,
But-
shadow.
you know what I'm talking about. But no, like I really do enjoy the mystery behind him, and like, because I mean, up until the very end of this movie, you're led to believe that he's just a person. You know, like he is just a human.
That's
But
true.
then the way that the doctor that Sam Loomis talks about him is like you almost feel like there's more to it. And like he goes on and said like he's pure evil. And that is one of my favorite parts is he's like, I spent 5 years working with him, then I spent another 6 trying to get him killed or some shit.
Yeah,
like
it's like
that.
Yeah.
8 years trying to fix him,
Yeah.
and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up.
Yeah.
He figured out there's nothing but evil in his eyes.
And then it's just, I even like, because he basically just dedicates himself to exterminating Michael Myers. Like, this is badass.
Yeah, I mean, I think this movie really, I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this, but you could just like feel how good it is, like within the first, I would say hour, right? Like the ending and the climax and all that. I don't think it's really scary. I understand like how well put together it is, like how intense and how like dangerous it feels. But I think the first hour of this movie is actually where it really shines because it's the
stalking and all that,
pacing, and like the overall like feeling that the movie is giving you. It's so foreboding that like you can just feel like at any second the shit's gonna hit the fan, but it actually, you know, it doesn't until about an hour in, which I think is pretty cool. But I also think that the first kill kind of sucks. Can we talk about that for a second?
Like the very first one?
It's the girl in the car that gets
that
choked
one,
out,
yeah.
right? I think that one though, it's like it's such an overdone scene in the future, right? But I can tell how effective it was in this movie. But I think that it's ruined by the acting because like the girl like, and it reminded me of Blowout, right? It's such a fake scream. And then she like closes her eyes and then opens them again one last time and then closes them. And I mean, that's a nitpick. I get it that shouldn't really affect the overall movie, but for that to be the first kill just really like it didn't sit right.
But I think that's what I talk about. Like it's in revisionist though because it's been so
definitely
overdone.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of worse versions of this in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially in remakes too, but I don't know. I just that first kill never sits right with me.
No,
The garage kill.
Yeah, that's funny.
Do you guys have a favorite kill in this movie?
I don't know.
I think the iconic one is when he kills the boyfriend and he like sticks him to the wall.
Yeah, I was like, is that the
And then he starts kind of like a dog. He wondering what it just did. It's like turning its head, looking back and forth. I think that's probably the most iconic.
is
Oh,
one.
he's dead. Yeah,
I like the one. I like when he puts a sheet over himself. Like,
He's just a silly guy.
So funny.
He likes to also troll.
Cut the
Yeah.
eye holes
Just like
out and everything.
Pazuzu.
Yeah, they're just a couple of goofy
They're just
goobers,
like,
you know
yeah,
what I
come
mean?
on.
I do
'cause they're
like
evil.
that he has some humor.
Yeah,
Because
that's pretty funny.
when we did the horror bracket, I brought up the analogy that Michael Myers is Giannis and Jason is bag Twitter. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But that Michael Myers and Giannis, it's just like I'm going to the basket. There's nothing you can do to stop me. And Michael Myers is the same way with the kill. So
Yep.
I admire the dedication. This is one of the all-time. I mean, I feel like the kill count is not that high in this movie, but overall, like Michael Myers just gets that shit.
No, he does.
And I think that's why this movie, again, just like The Exorcist, and then obviously a lot of these 8 are going to have that in similarity, is that the story is so well done, though, that it doesn't bounce off of needing so many actual kills. Like, the kills that you do get just seem justified and realistic. And then in like the new remakes, like I know we went to go watch it. Some of it just seems like you're focused on how much blood there's gonna be on the kills and not how this makes any sense whatsoever.
Dude, if you've seen the newest, I know you haven't, but if you had seen the newest Texas Chainsaw, there's a scene in a party bus that he literally slaughters everybody. So it's like one of the goriest things I've ever seen, and it doesn't work at all. But this movie, it really isn't even that gory.
No, I mean it relies on like the implied violence.
Yeah.
I think that's
Exactly.
why it works really well for this movie.
Like there's the scene in the beginning right where they have no idea what's going on, and she goes and drops off the keys for the Meyer house because they're gonna try to sell it, and you just see his shadow, like he's through his point of view, and just stuff like that. The whole movie, it's like he is that close to you the whole time, but you have no idea that he's
the
behind
unknown.
you. Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like when you're scared when you're taking out the trash, or if you're like, oh, I gotta go walk the dog at night, or something like that.
He's
Like,
basically like one of the first of like the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Like he really is like the boogeyman.
yeah, my wife actually asked me. It's funny that you brought that up. She asked me, she's like, was the boogeyman a character that people talk about because of Michael Myers, or was it like the boogeyman?
The other way around.
And I was like, oh no, I'm pretty sure the
Boogeyman
boogeyman
is
is like
his own
this
thing.
old story, right? But that Michael Myers is like the film embodiment of it.
and I think I would agree with that just because they know who the boogeyman is. They bring it up. They call him, the little kids are like, the boogeyman is there. The boogeyman is there.
Dude, could you imagine being one of the kids in this movie?
Yeah.
Like the little kid who's being babysat. I think his name's Tommy. Like this is like a nightmare that I used to have. Like I would be at like a friend's house, right? Like chilling in there, like den or whatever, and you could see the backyard, right? And I would always just think like, what if someone walked by? You know what I mean?
He's
Like,
gonna show
it's
up.
just like I'm gonna lock the door.
That was-
let
dude,
me look
yep.
out. Like even now, sometimes at night, if I can't see, I'm just like, I don't know.
My biggest fear is still opening my bedroom window in the middle of the night and having a face be out there.
And
Like,
seeing
that
him,
is like
yeah.
my biggest fucking fear.
Looking straight back at
Yup,
you, right?
Like
yeah.
no way, I'm good.
Yeah, no.
Nah.
I'm totally good, dude.
That's why I don't even look out.
Yeah, that's exactly. I hide on the covers.
Can't even acknowledge it.
Exactly.
I think one of the we just happened to turn towards the screen. I think this is one of the great lines of the movie. It's when Lori gets scared by the cop, and he tells her like, "It's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare." Like I just think that's such a
It's
perfect
a good line.
Yeah, because it's so innocent, right? And it's like you have no idea what's coming. Honestly. Go ahead.
I will say that I think that's where this movie also does really good is that the acting is all for overall cast is good. You know, nobody drops the ball here. There's like the weird screaming that you're talking about, but I think that does come from us being so many years ahead and then thinking like, oh, that kind of sounds corny.
I'm
and
sure
like,
it sounded good in '78 when it hit.
Exactly. Like, or it wasn't overdone. So it kind of was like, oh, I'm sure somebody screams like that, you know? Like, now we just know, be like, it's so obviously fake. But I will say that the acting here overall, everybody plays their part really well.
Yeah, and I mean, this is Jamie Lee Curtis's first role. She was literally cast as an homage to Psycho. Like, John Carpenter did it because her mom is in Psycho. So that's just like the ultimate film bro thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I didn't know it was her first role.
I mean, later on too, she's in the second one, right?
Yes.
Is she? I mean, I know she's in H2O, right?
I think she's in the first. If I'm right, I think she's in the first 4 or the first 3.
Well, that third one is Season of the Witch. Have you guys ever seen that one?
I know what it is. I've never actually seen
No.
it myself.
Yeah, me either.
It's totally unrelated.
Yeah, which it's kind of weird how you can just erase all of these movies except for like the first one, I think.
Because they were going to go ahead. I know this. They were going to go ahead and turn it into like an anthology series and just do a different Halloween movie based off scary things and release it on Halloween.
We later on we got Trick or Treat, which is that, and I mean that's cool. I like that movie, but it's not good.
But they were going to drop like a movie every couple years and call it Halloween and then have it be some different.
Oh, I
scary
see.
premise. Is what they were.
It's kind of like what Blumhouse does now on Hulu, where they have the distribution deal with Hulu, where they put out a scary movie for every holiday. So like there'd be like a 4th of July scary movie, a Thanksgiving scary movie.
I see.
Look into that.
It's pretty cool because it's like going to the video store and finding a cool horror B movie where you're like, is this great? Am I getting anything out of this? No,
Am I
but
gonna love
it's
this?
fun.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, have some Sour Patch and some popcorn.
I used to watch Leprechaun all the time, dude.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Leprechaun.
There's
man.
a reason I kept that off the bracket.
Like you still brought it up. You still found a way to bring it up. That's so
I told
funny.
you off mic not to
I
say
didn't even
that.
know. Life
so
finds
funny.
a way.
I mean, we were talking about the cast, and I think even the friends are like properly annoying, like the right kind of friend annoying in the movie, where they're like, well, you got one of them who's just hanging out with their boyfriend. The other one is not so bad. She's kind of taking care of the kid, but I think it's funny that she's like, get the goddamn dog. Like she's like making the popcorn, you know, like I just think that the characters feel so real. And I'm sure it has to do with the fact that this is such a small movie. Like you could have had way bigger names, right? If this had been made by Universal or Warner Brothers or whoever. But I just think that the performances in this movie, these people probably felt like they had a lot to prove and they freaking delivered.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they're passive. They make mistakes that teenagers would make, and then it's like
they dared to have fun.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just like passable. A bunch of their deaths or a bunch of the stuff how they think is like later, like you're saying. Now it kind of looks dumb when they make movies like that. Like, oh, it's just too stupid teen. But back then it was just plausible and it wasn't overdone, so it worked, and it still does. Now, I don't know. I think the story is set around those premises of just innocent kids, so it works. Just the same way like something like The Goonies works. You know, the premise is just set there well because the story is well written.
I think one of the reasons that Friday the 13th doesn't work is because the characters are all unlikable, and then you get the twist
Correct.
of what happens to Jason, and then you're like, well, I'm
Kind of
supposed
on
to be
his
on
side.
the kid's side now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Y'all seem terrible.
Exactly. And in this first Halloween movie, we have no frame of reference for anything else except for like, why are these kids being terrorized? And it's funny that we did this and The Exorcist like back-to-back weeks, because The Exorcist is also like, why are these kids being terrorized? And I guess it probably has to do with like you guys were saying, like the time period of people feeling like the innocence had kind of been lost because of like these serial killers. Like you can't just leave your door unlocked at night. And that's probably another reason this movie feels comforting too, is because of that. This is still that time of like, okay, the teenagers are babysitting, so it's like they're gonna go have sex in their neighbor's house, and like this is just totally normal to them. And like I feel like now, if you even heard that, you'd be like, what the fuck are these people doing, right? But back then, it's like these people are so comfortable just being in someone else's house, just doing the most comfortable thing you can think of. And then a fucking serial killer comes and gets you for, I guess, because you had sex, right? Like that is kind of how this movie feels.
Because you were home, yeah.
Yeah, like you were home having sex. You were doing naughty things. Like, so the serial killer had to come and get you.
You weren't paying attention.
Yeah,
because I mean, they all of them do die of consequences of things they're not supposed to be doing. She's dropping off the girl because she wants to meet up with the guy, and then they just toss everything on Jamie Lee Curtis's character because she's kind of responsible. She's the quote unquote the responsible one. So then she's the only one that's why she's able to take care of the issue at the end. You know, she's the only one that somehow survives because all of them are kind of given that, oh, you're responsible, so Michael Myers comes to kill you, which is again an overused trope now, but it just worked.
It wasn't at the time. Yep. We're talking about the grandfather of all this stuff, right? Which, I mean, I rightfully think it is. Like, I don't think movies would be maybe they'd be cooler, but like if Nightmare on Elm Street was like the template for what horror should be, like maybe that would be sicker because it'd be a lot like more psychological and trippier and stuff like that. But that's just personal preference. But yeah.
For me, I wish it'd be Hellraiser.
Sicko. Solve my puzzle.
Pleasures of the skin, huh?
Yeah.
Pleasures of the flesh. Real sicko.
Dude, for real.
But yeah, back to Halloween.
You know what I wanted to talk about? Because I think it ends up, like, it's so prophetic that this even happens. Donald Pleasance, when he arrives to Haddonfield and he meets with the cop, and he tells him what's going down, right? He's like, we have this escaped serial killer. I'm pretty sure he's going to be here. He lets him in on the past. He kind of gives a little exposition. Donald Pleasance specifically tells him not to let the whole town know. Like, don't tell everybody and don't tell the whole town. And then that's the plot of Halloween Kills, and the movie fucking sucks. So it's like the very first Halloween knew to not do that, and then that ends up being the plot.
Good point.
Of the last one, which I think is one of the worst ones.
This is a little part where the comedic relief, or now looking at it, and you said putting on the comedy hat. It's really funny that it's just so nose on, like he's saying nose. That, and then on the nose, and then behind him, Michael Myers is driving with the car.
Like that's some, like straight up like Three Stooges type comedy. You know what I mean? Like, why is that? That needs to be a meme because we're literally about to see it right now. Like, Donald Pleasance thinks he has a hold on this whole thing, right? And the cop is not taking it serious at all, which I think probably has to do with what you guys are talking about at the time. It's like not every city was prepared to deal with the serial killer, and Haddonfield, Illinois is one of those cities. I mean, the freaking serial killer is driving right past the cops like it's Looney Tunes or something, you know? Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about the William Shatner mask?
I mean, yeah.
Well, do you guys know the story that like they just got a bunch of them, and the William Shatner one ended up being like the most lifeless, scariest, pale entity that they could find?
Yeah.
Which I think that's funny because at the time he was a total heartthrob, right? I mean, he's Captain Kirk, dude. That's a Captain Kirk mask.
I will say though, it's probably because it's a bad mask of him.
Dude,
you know,
you ever look back at like 60s, 70s Halloween pictures and it's like these are abominations.
They're terrifying because of that.
It's actually scary.
Yeah, because
the cutest version of it is the Peanuts. You know what I mean? Like seeing Charlie Brown dressed up like that. But those are some scary ass Halloween costumes too, because it's all ghosts and witches and like pumpkin faces and stuff like that. No, but I do think the William Shatner mask is like beyond iconic.
It's like,
have you guys seen how it's changed throughout the years?
Yeah.
I just think that's funny because it's like, why are there even this many movies where you can have this many different versions of the mask?
Because I will say, I understand why they've changed it, because it wouldn't work if it still looked exactly the same. And why is it always clean, right? If it now he's a bigger entity, he is evil. But I will say that in this movie, towards the end, it gets taken off of him. So then I've kind of wondered why they've never really why has he never had a face? And I guess it's always because you guys said he's kind of known as the figure or the shadow, whatever it is. So that mask being so lifeless is the one they always just keep putting on him. But it is interesting to me that they've never decided to like give us half a mask, or I don't know, something.
I know John Carpenter said that the reason that like he wore the jumpsuit and the mask is because he wanted audiences to be able to like to relate to him as least as possible. Like, he did not want audiences to be able to relate to the guy at all.
That makes sense.
But then I think it's interesting because I don't remember if it's one of the Rob Zombie films or if it's just another one of the spin-offs of the different Halloween movies. But there is a movie where, like, for a good portion of it, he's not wearing a mask. Like, a lot of it is when he's in, like, the mental institution, like, as a teenager.
That's
like,
the Rob Zombie ones.
Is it? And he's just like, yeah. He
Are
doesn't wear a
those like
mask.
from the back shots where you can only see like?
No,
Or
it's,
they
he
do
has
go
long
head
hair.
on and you
He
can
has
see-
long hair, yeah.
So you can, like, see it, like, draping over his... He kind of looks like the dude in the newest Texas Chainsaw movie.
Oh,
Kind of
really?
like that, yeah.
It works. That's why I said I know people don't really like those movies. For me, those worked because I always did like the mythos of Michael Myers, and they dove into that the kid was a seed of evil. Those Rob Zombie ones did, and we did see his face before. I think in one of those, he's like in the asylum and he paints his mask, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they try to get like more into the psychology.
Yeah, they
of
do.
Yeah.
What's
And
wrong with
I
him?
know a lot of people don't like that because they want Michael Myers to stay as this entity, like, not human. But at the same time, I'm like, well, this is the 11th movie in the series. Like, I think maybe
They're gonna
it's
have
about
to
time
address
you're
it.
gonna have to go into something.
Let's humanize
else.
him a little bit,
And
I
I mean,
guess.
honestly, like, I like those movies. Like,
I
I
do.
think that they work.
I mean, shoot, in Halloween Kills, I was like, he's gonna say something, isn't he? Like, I finally thought that he
Gotcha.
was gonna talk.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah. Like
I mean, that's what I would. My favorite Michael Myers line is when he said, "Boo, I got you." I mean, overall, I do think that this is just a perfect blend of the right guy, the right director,
Correct.
and then the right property. You know what I mean? Like, I think he is the most synonymous with this, right? It's because it's John Carpenter's
so.
Halloween.
Yeah.
And do you guys know if off the top of your head if The Thing is like?
yes.
It is
it's
like
John
that, like
Carpenter.
John
Carpenter's
Carpenter's the thing.
Yeah, but
Because it's a book, I think, though, too. Right?
what
The Thing.
is it? I don't know. I just know that there's the '50s movie, which is referenced in this version of the movie.
I think because it's or because there's previous renditions of it. That's when they use like John Carpenter's or not. But
Look, we're not here for facts.
yeah,
if you want that.
but I
Google
do.
it if you want to know.
I do know because it's one of the 8 that we have, and I have it in 4K, and it like has it in being John Carpenter's
okay.
The Thing.
We had mentioned this, and I mean, the Thing is in Halloween, so I
Yeah.
feel like that's a cut in for us to talk about the Thing a little bit early. Do you think that the Halloween is like better than the Thing?
No,
No, right?
no.
Do I think it's better?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess personally I like to think better, but as a movie, like, technically done, I don't know. I don't know. You don't like the thing more than Halloween?
No, I do.
Okay.
I like the
I
thing
know,
way
like,
more.
I feel
No,
like
I like the thing
is,
way
like,
more.
in Rose,
than-
like for sure top
Yeah.
5. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's in my top 10 or maybe even 15. But that's just like when I don't know. I it's always like, ooh, but what about this one? But what about this
Yeah.
one? And I don't even know if the Thing is my favorite sci-fi horror movie.
I get what you
either.
mean. But for me, yeah, it's like one of my favorite
Yeah, me
movies, The
too.
Thing. So I do think like The Thing is John Carpenter's best movie, but Halloween is what he's known for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean,
probably.
I feel like they call him the master of horror, right?
Yeah.
Or is that Wes Craven?
Oh, I don't know.
I know John Carpenter's got one of those nicknames, right? But I feel like he isn't even really best at horror. Like I personally like The Thing, which is horror, and Big Trouble in Little China even more. So I just think it's kind of funny that the impact of this is so like big that he kind of gets forgotten for his other classics, because he is a genre man. Like he has done
Yes.
a bunch of different things. Like he did Assault on Precinct 13 before this, and it's not horror at all.
No.
You know what I mean? Like it's a crime thriller, like intense movie. But like I think that is what he's known for the most, is the intensity of his movies.
'Cause
They're
to me-
all pretty like white knuckle, like, oh man, I'm nervous while watching
Because
this.
I've told you that which is fun. It's just really funny. It's tied with this, but they're not equal at all. But it's like Battle of New York is to me one of
Escape
his like
from New York?
Escape from New York. Sorry,
Battle for New York is the other movie.
yeah, but
Battlefield Los Angeles.
Oh my god.
I remember that movie too.
But
Escape
go
from
on.
New York, yeah, like that's one of my favorite from him. But because I think it's what John Carpenter is so much of. It's what he's good at. That movie only works because it's given to John Carpenter. The same way that Halloween only works because it's given to John Carpenter. His way of being able to do so many things, how he's involved in it, I think is we don't get much of that anymore, which is for a good part. I'm pretty sure it's too stressful to do too much of it by yourself, you know. But the fact that he was able to pump out so many that had his like iconic look, yeah, he's one of my favorite directors for sure.
Have you guys ever seen Dark Star?
No. That's his first. I think
that's his very
first one.
Movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his very first one that isn't a short. So a couple of years ago, I had you acquire this movie for me so I could watch it. And it's like the template for not for Halloween, for Alien. And then the guys who worked on this movie ended up like working on Alien. And that movie is like even a lower budget than this one, and it's ridiculous because it's like it's pretty bad and like hokey and stuff like that, but you can see where the intensity starts and like him creating tension and just having this really like ominous feeling throughout the entire movie, like just cranking it to 1,000 every time. And I don't know where that came from. That's got to be I'm sure that's a deep question if you ask him, exactly. Like, why are your movies so intense, right? But I do think he ended up going on one of like the best, like honestly 10 movie runs, like out of like any director who lived. Like I think his filmography for the most part is pretty solid.
I will say that he has, the reason I do really like him is he tends to pick characters for his movies, or actors even, that aren't necessarily regarded as too good. Like, I mean, also he has like They Live. He has Roddy Piper as
I don't think the characters or the actors are bigger than the movie.
Yeah.
Like his movie is always the front and
he
center.
helps make them like, I feel like Kurt Russell, for example, that's the big one that I'm thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't necessarily think he's a good actor, but I think The Thing,
Who
I
are
couldn't
they?
see.
I'm like,
we need to have words with these.
I couldn't, yeah, like I couldn't see anybody else in The Thing or in all the movies that or in Battle of New York or Escape from New York. Sorry,
yeah.
Escape from New York. Be like it's like, but his like John Carpenter's themes of his movies and the way his style just works so well with Kurt Russell in the same way. That's what I was saying. Like I think it's They Live. It's Roddy Piper.
Yeah,
like,
right. He just brought a wrestler. John Cena could never.
Yeah, The Rock could never.
Oh, he hasn't.
He
won't. I'll be hard pressed to see when the first episode featuring The Rock.
Pain and Gain.
No, we're not doing that. I'll just veto that now. I would be very interested to see when it's the first time The Rock makes an appearance.
You did
on
say
this
there's one movie that you
Snitch? Yeah, but I wouldn't do a Snitch podcast.
Snitch. Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Exactly.
Anyways, back to Halloween, guys.
Oh man, we got so far, dude. We got into a rock hole.
Well, you were saying his 10 runs of movies.
Oh, his run?
Yeah.
I mean, his Dark Star, Assault on Precinct 13, Halloween. Then he's got like 2 TV movies, which we're not going to count. But then it's The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing, Christine, Starman, Big Trouble in Little China, Prince of Darkness, They Live. And then it ends there because it's got like Memoirs of an Invisible Man. And then a couple years later is In the Mouth of Madness, and he makes some.
I actually like that movie.
He makes a couple stinkers. Like I watched a movie called Vampires with James Woods, and not very good. And like I remember seeing Ghost of Mars in the theater with my parents, and that's not a very good movie.
Towards the end, there's a couple stinkers.
Yeah. What can I say though? That 10 movie run is pretty fucking impeccable, and it's like a lot of different genres as well.
After those is where it's become also like I brought up last week in The Exorcist, Giga Chad interviews.
Oh, with William Friedkin.
But like John Carpenter also has Giga Chad
takes on Twitter.
Yeah, like I forgot. I guess they sometimes like the horror geniuses get together, and sometimes they'll invite him over, and he always says he just leaves because he's like, I just go home. Play some Xbox. Like he likes playing Xbox
and
Live.
Watching the NBA. Those are his like 2 favorite things to do now.
Like he just doesn't like. He's like whatever. Let them do what they do. He doesn't care.
Honestly, that's all he does, dude. He's on Stream East and fucking playing Xbox on Twitch. Dude, we're getting The Thing reference right now live as we're watching the movie.
Sick.
I think that we talked about this trope. It's like movies that they're watching in the movie are better than the actual movie. Like I don't think this is one of those cases, but this is just another one of those things that has been beat to death over and over again. Of people in movies love watching movies, right? Sure. And I guess that is a way of it trying to be like, yo, they're literally me, right? But I don't know. It's fine. I don't know if this is one of my favorite tropes in movies.
No,
not really. I mean,
I think it's just always them showing their love for either themselves or other movies that like, oh look, I know what movies
This
is
is what I
good.
like.
Yeah, or like, which is it's fine. I guess it's like every artist's signature, right? To like, but I do think it never has advanced the plot.
yeah, right. When has it ever been like actually important to have? It's just a cool aesthetic thing. I mean, that'd be tight if they did get it to work one day. I mean, the closest thing I've seen to that is a song in Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. Like, there's a song that plays a crucial part in the movie. Like, it's an actual clue.
There's
like,
a
when
clue,
the song
yeah.
plays. Yeah, it's really sick. I mean, what about California Dreamin' and
It's chunky.
That
Oh, man.
that has a lot to do with the plot, actually.
Yeah, that's the whole plot actually.
Yo, I love this song.
Yeah,
Like, this
Rick.
one song.
Don't get me started.
Since we're on the topic of music, I mean, this is an argument for a long time. Not between us. I'm just saying, in online. We don't argue. Come on, we're good boys. We respect others' opinions. Internally, I might hate them, but you know,
I would.
We're gonna keep it civil on the mics.
yeah, we'll keep it civil. Come on, we're adults here. What do you think is the better score, The Exorcist or Halloween? Because one is an obvious ripoff, and I mean, John Carpenter has kind of addressed it. I mean, it's heavily inspired. You can't ignore it.
John Carpenter ripped off The Exorcist, but
I used to think it was the other way around
we found it at Hot Horror Nights.
because we ended up looking it
We were
up,
talking
right?
about it, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's The Exorcist.
Because at first you're like, William Friedkin has something to explain to John Carpenter. Why does this sound too much like Halloween? And then I was like, didn't this one come out before? And we looked it up.
Oh, shoot. See, I know so much about movies, I forget the stuff I know.
I only remember that because it was I looked it up that day. It was because I didn't.
And
I would have
playing like right next to each other.
I would have assumed, and I guess it's just biased to John Carpenter liking him so much that John Carpenter came up with it himself, and then William Friedkin. That sounds kind of cool, but it was actually the other way around. Whoever the composer was for The Exorcist.
Go ahead.
I do think that The Exorcist score is better.
Yeah.
I think the Halloween score, like, I mean, it's super iconic, and honestly, if you probably showed a lot of people The Exorcist score, they would think it's the Halloween score.
That's what I was gonna say.
Really, yeah. But the Halloween score does kind of get a little annoying. Not gonna lie.
Yes, I think it's cheap in some moments. Honestly, like it's there. I think it overtakes the actual on-screen stuff. Where it's like with our closed captions that we have, it says like abrasive synth. You know what I mean? And
I don't.
It
need
really
that.
is that. Like I feel like it's trying to make you more scared by how loud it is, as opposed to what's actually taking place on the screen.
That's why when the movie becomes kind of like B movie in that instance, because I agree it over blares. It almost is loud on the speakers, like the synth. But in the Exorcist, it just kind of seems like when it does use it, it makes everything look like, oh, shit's getting creepy.
Yeah,
because it's not used so, and it's only used short sprouts, like not really too long.
Yeah, it's definitely not like throughout the entire thing. And in this, like, I mean, it helped create this trope, but of like the killer having their own theme.
Correct.
It like later on we get one of the cheapest things I hate the most, which is Jason's like shh shh shh.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And it's like, okay, here he comes. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it totally ruins the like tension, you know, because it's like, okay, I already know what's going to happen now that you started playing the music.
Don't tell me something's gonna happen. Just
show me.
have it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I had written as my review for this. It's like obviously every single time the character looks confused, then the score starts playing. You're like, oh, here comes Michael Myers, you know? And it just worked before because it wasn't done all the time. It was almost a little signature flair to all the movies.
It's
Those
a little
B-roll
one
movies.
note, honestly, the score. Like it's so repetitive too, and I feel like you can't even really compare The Exorcist the whole thing. You know what I mean? Because it's so different. Like there's some classical music in there,
Correct.
and it's more of a overall movie score, but it's like that Exorcist theme that we all know, and the Halloween one. I think out of those, like if you divide it up, I think that those two, The Exorcist is still better, like overall. And I do think that the Exorcist theme is actually a better, like, what am I trying to say? Like, you know, am I making sense here?
It's just like composed better. Like it is.
Yeah, like I think overall,
better.
yeah, there you go.
I think
It's
so,
overall composed better. Like I don't get tired of hearing it the way I get tired of hearing the Halloween one.
Because I think it doesn't get blasted to your. It never is the main component driving the fear. It's always just a little subtle touch to it, as opposed to here, like you said, once the score starts, you know stuff is about to start. But in The Exorcist, things are already happening, and then the score starts playing.
I really love the title sequence of Halloween.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like one of the more creative things of that time, just to have the pumpkin. Like it's so simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it just works so well. But even by the end of that, I'm already kind of tired of the score. Because I'm like, okay, am I about to get beat over the head with this thing? And
Yes,
you
you are.
really do.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel like that comes from Halloween Town starts like that too.
Mm.
And we were talking
The Disney movies?
Yeah,
Really?
we were talking. Or I think one of them does, and I was talking of that Comfort movie. This is like the adult version of those, obviously. It's like-
Shout out
Halloween
Halloween
Town.
Town. Shout out.
That'll probably have an episode before we do an episode of The Rock. I'll tell you that.
that's true.
I enjoyed those movies.
Those are
quite a
kid
bit.
movies enjoying.
Dude, Halloween Town and Hocus Pocus are my shit.
Yeah,
Return of Calabar, or was that his name?
I don't even remember.
I'm not sure. I
You don't remember Calabar?
there was a good amount of them. There's like 4 of those.
I liked Halloween Town High. I
Yeah,
was probably too old
Yep.
to like those already, but
but I liked it.
I did like that because I was like, man, I wish my high school was like that. And I wasn't even in high school yet, but I was like, I hope when I get there, there's some magical stuff happening.
I feel you.
Oh, do you guys have much more to say about Halloween? I mean, I
Not
feel like
really.
I'm giving off that I don't have as much to say about this.
Well,
I
I mean,
just think it's because I still, even though we're all these minutes in, I still haven't like opened up to this movie more than I thought I thought I would.
I will say that some of the simplicity to Halloween is like its story. The story is pretty straightforward. It's not very long. I think it's an hour 30, probably like an hour 25 with that if you take all the intro out. The intro's pretty long. I think that's why it's not really a deep movie. I think this movie is almost like, I know last week when you brought up The Exorcist, like you haven't seen it. I do think that it's more plausible that somebody hasn't seen The Exorcist and they have seen Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, it's very accessible. Like,
Yeah.
super, like, this is a good one to show people for the first time. Like, I think even if you don't really like horror, that this is good enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's just scary enough. And, like, we're about to be, like, 50 minutes into the actual movie, right? And we're barely about to get our first kill. And I think that's probably another reason why it's so comforting. I know I keep going back to that, but I just thought it was so interesting that was how Nate described the movie. Like, it comforts me. And I mean, I at first I was like, what the fuck? But now that we've talked about it a little more, like, I can totally see what you mean.
But I think there's some movies where you've talked about like some of the prior movies that we've done. If you don't get the payoff that you want, some people want a quick payoff. I think this movie is kind of known, I guess, as a horror like staple piece, but it is very like patient. Like you kind of said, like we're 50 minutes in, and that's kind of when you actually get. Besides in the beginning,
The very beginning.
Yeah.
when we get him as a little kid. But so you know what you're in for, but you're waiting for it. But this movie does so well is that the fact that he's kind of following everybody around you are like, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And in that kind of deliverance, maybe it's done that way because it was done so low budget. And so there's not like, we can't get too many kills in here. We're not trying to make all of these look too low budget. So they had like, maybe we can have 3 good kills or something, right? But I think it's not like a crazy movie to break down is what I was getting at. Or like it has a lot of people.
It's like we could be overthinking it by even trying to, like, describe it in all these different ways when it's really just, it's like an exercise in making a perfect movie. You know what
I
I
think
mean?
so,
Like,
yeah.
it's the perfect runtime. It's the perfect amount of scary from, like, a general audience. It's got a good enough score that is, like, people are going to remember forever. It's got a director behind it who has a vision for this thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just I think that's probably why so many other directors keep going back to this. Because, like, I was thinking in my head, like, okay, who else do I know off the top of my head that has used, like, this stuff that John Carpenter invented? And it's like, Brian De Palma, dude. Like, every 80s movie that he made that starts with, you know, basically the opening sequence of Halloween. Like, we see it in Blowout.
Yep.
And I know Body Double has that kind of stuff in it too, right? And it's like, you can you kind of can't even tell. It'd be like, is this Brian De Palma or is this John Carpenter? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if you didn't know.
Yeah.
Like if you had only seen some John Carpenter movies and you seen a movie that Brian De Palma made, you'd kind of be like, hold up, I think I can see those similarities there.
I feel the same way with Cronenberg.
With
at that
John Carpenter and
Like
Cronenberg?
at the time, if you told me John Carpenter did The Fly, I'd be like, that seems believable to me.
Yeah, and if you told me that David Cronenberg had
Did
made
the Thing.
Yeah,
Like,
I
that
believe
makes
that.
total sense.
It makes total sense. And so, I mean, that's why I like both of them a lot. But
they're like movie soulmates.
Yeah, they really.
I
are.
will say that this movie, I like that you said it's like a flex of like just perfect storytelling, because I think as a horror fan, it has everything that you could want in a horror movie,
Yeah.
and done it in the most simplest way.
No, that's basically it. I mean, this is just, it's a very simple movie. It's a very simple story. You know, bad guy gets out of prison basically and he goes kills people.
Correct.
Like, there's nothing crazy going on, but I just think that what I always think about is how, I mean, you know, the budget, it was so low, and like the fact that you're able to come out with a movie that is this good, and like I said, like, it maybe is not. It really isn't the scariest movie, and it's not
Yeah.
even close to the scariest.
That's
movie.
true.
But it really is such like a perfect. It is a horror movie though.
Yeah.
And it's like a perfect horror movie to throw on with a group of people with, you know, like around Halloween, and that's why I think that this movie will probably. I mean, it already has, but it will continue to last like the test of time. Honestly.
In 5 to 6 years, it'll be 50 years old.
Yeah.
I think.
And have been rebooted 5 more times somehow.
Please stop.
And they'll still be showing it at a movie theater around you in July. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that just goes to show you that this is one of those movies that just stands the test of time, where people have decided that this is just like perfect. And I totally understand that. Like, that's why it kind of bugs me that I don't like this movie as much as I wish I liked it, because it's like I can see everything right about this movie. It's like the things I just said before. It's like, this is perfectly paced. It's got a good payoff. Like, it rewards you for the patience. It's a scary character. I don't know. I honestly just think it has to do with the fact that I didn't see it as a kid.
Probably.
But even the fact that, like, yeah, on June 3rd in our local area, this movie is going to be playing in a theater.
So
And
random.
it's kind of like another movie I can think of that's like that is like Rocky Horror or like Jurassic Park, where it's like somewhere in your city, if they have like an art house type theater, they're probably showing one of these movies right now. And I just think it's a forever movie. Like, it cannot be forgotten, and it cannot not be mentioned. And I honestly think that's why it made it this far into that's why it made the Elite Eight. Because I was ready to be like edgelord and be like, well, actually Halloween doesn't belong in the 8. But I for me, it was an out of respect thing where I'm like, this has to be there.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, this probably is the least scary movie that we have in our top 8, but I mean, there's a reason why it's here.
I could just picture Rose's head, a cloud on the inside. It's like Malignant.
Just you wait, my guy.
Man.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna say though, it does stand the test of time, this movie, because it's still a relatable concept.
Yeah, like, it's honestly perfect. Like, it's a 5.
An
But to
unknown-
me, it's a
yeah.
3. I feel bad. You know what I mean? Like, it bugs me.
No, because I think sometimes the way that I like to think about stuff too, when and some stuff doesn't deliver, is I take off my American hat off, and I'm like, okay, well, like, if somebody else from another country sees this, what do they think? And I always like to read those reviews of people like international, because it doesn't hit to them the same way.
Yeah.
Like, they see this stuff and it's like, it's kind of corny, or like the Italian like horror guys, like, it's kind of corny. So
Yeah, and, like, I did say I like giallos more than American slasher movies.
and like it's vice versa. So I think like when I do feel that way, I kind of think like, obviously I may just be so American about like John Carpenter, the way that he does stuff. I like that he did all 3 of these things, and I like that he made such a good movie at a low budget. But then if you don't know all those things, what if you just think the movie fucking sucks? And then you could break down why the movie sucks, and I'd be like, I understand, but I think to me it has a cultural hold that makes it like it makes it a 5. To me, I get it. I guess if you want to talk about rankings, I rank it at a 4 because I know it's not a 5 star. It's not a 5-star movie because it's not perfect. But to me, it has such a it's iconic. And like you said, if I'm doing a horror movies for the 31 days of Halloween, I might watch this on Halloween. Like, this might be the one for Halloween. You know, it has the title for a reason, and I think it's gonna stand the time of Halloween, regardless of. I think. This is gonna sound kind of like dumb, but in you know, whenever there's no humans or whatever, and what's Halloween, and if they find this fucking movie, I think it would make a good, like, yeah, that's what people were actually scared of, or what they thought Halloween was. And I think the fact that it holds that kind of like test of time, I think it's why it's one of the tiers.
We're such film bros that we can't even fathom the concept of an alien not being interested in movies.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't wanna
You're like,
watch
hold
this?
up. You know when the aliens pop in the DVDs, you'd be like, you think that's what they're going to be worried about? And
Yeah.
like us, it's like, hell yeah,
Y'all
they
waste
are,
your time
right?
doing this still.
Because this one will still be around for some reason.
Yeah, right. Honestly,
This fucking movie will
I
be
get
around.
it. Yeah, like if you need to explain to someone what movies are, if an alien crash landed, I would show them this movie. Like, this is a movie.
This is the definition of a scary movie.
Yeah,
I think,
definitely.
yeah, this comes part of those that era that you were talking about, the gold, which I think is a good argument of like this era, or at least like it's like a bracket of 10 years is like really
70
some
to
of the
79,
best
yeah, some of the best
movies of all time.
And John Carpenter's part of it, dude.
Big
He's
time.
I think he's an underrated and underappreciated director, like a great auteur.
I think so
honestly.
I
too.
would agree.
Because he has such a, like, all of those movies that you named, even the bad ones have such a signature style of his, and I really like it. And I think it might just be from a love of low budget things where you can make with such a low budget, like The Fog and stuff like that. It really is, it's nothing crazy, but I do think at your most basic core of like being scared of things, it touches upon all of those things. And I was gonna say is, as a whole, I feel like everybody's kind of gone me like Scary Movie on those, like on all of it, like on Halloween, like just like Man with Knife, me like movie, like
Yeah,
that's it.
It's simple.
Yeah.
it
me
works.
scared, that's it.
I
It's
forget
dark.
who I think it was like Godard or somebody. It's like all you need is like a blonde and a gun, and you have a movie.
Yeah,
right?
correct.
And it's like, but all you need is a mask and a knife, and you got yourself a slasher.
It's true, because it's like, who is it?
Doesn't matter.
That's all the
Yeah.
interest. But in this movie, it doesn't matter. Like we know who the character is, but it doesn't matter.
I feel like John Carpenter must have hated how in Scooby Doo they unmask the person every week.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to correct this.
He's like, no,
It's
yeah.
better when you don't know, damn it.
And yeah, I don't know. I know there's like a bunch of more of these. I don't know how many more of these he did. How many
I
he's
think
touched
this is the
upon.
only one because I looked at the second one. He didn't do the second one. It's some other guy. And his whole thing, I mean, talk about some Chad behavior is like, yeah, go ahead, keep remaking it as long as you send the
Pay
check.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Shit.
That's his
You
Chad
think I'm not
behavior.
gonna get paid for this? I mean, that's hard because
That
now
is
he's just
hard.
playing Xbox and watching the NBA, which is what I want to do.
Because every single time they use that, I'm pretty sure he has the name down, right? And then the score, they keep using the damn score too. I mean, it's like
You
he's like, I
can't
composed
reinvent
that.
the score. Like, you just can't. Like, honestly, even though I don't think it's like this technically great score, like it's not like he's fucking John Williams or anything,
Yeah.
right? But he is just as iconic as John Williams because like just for this one alone, like I mean, you could argue about the other
ones, yeah.
Like the thing is like he's just, okay. John Carpenter just understands what it means to be cool. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And like how far it can go to just be cool, to do cool things, like have synths and have sci-fi and horror
exactly.
elements. Like he just gets it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's probably why collectively he's in our like top list of overall filmmakers because he just understands it goes a long, long way to just be cool.
Cool. It's just badass stuff.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know if it's just like that's just the guy in me saying that, but I just think that's part of what makes John Carpenter so fucking rad. Is like he just gets it, dude.
That to me is the culmination of Escape from New York.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. Like that movie only literally is because like really guys like look at all this cool shit that I'm showing you. What a cool ass story that a whole city and the president would be there, and then they send this guy whose name is Snake Plissken.
Yeah.
They're like, and he's like the most badass character you can come up, but he's a criminal too at the same time.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Like basically, it's the original Suicide Squad.
So I just think, but just to like just tie him, like that is the reason why I think I like him so much. But I could see why somebody thinks it's. I was like, but it's not cool. It's all just stupid. Like, okay.
I didn't
What
really
a
want to
shame.
bring up this comparison, but I feel like I have to at this point. It's like how Alfred Hitchcock was underappreciated in his time for like, he's one note. It's all just going to be suspense. It's a guy with the wrong identity. Okay, he's going to do the same things over and over again.
Right.
But when you're this much in your bag, it just, what are you going to do? Stop? It works.
It works.
You know? And like we have a few directors like that today where the style is so concrete. I'm like, okay, this is a Wes Anderson movie. This is a Tarantino movie, right? But I think of all the directors of that era, that John Carpenter possibly has the most distinct style.
Yeah.
Like even more than like Martin Scorsese or like I think even more than Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola.
There is, I understand, being one note, but at one point it's your signature. Like that's what you're good at, and I think
it's what you innovated and pushed the boundaries.
Scorsese is obviously broadened. Spielberg is broadened. They've all done multiple things, and not to say that John Carpenter's done the same thing once. Like you kind of said it. Like he's done horror ones. Like he's known for Halloween, but then he's also done like thrillers. But they all seem to have the same theme that. They're all John Carpenter movies. And then like some of like Scorsese's movies or Spielberg, they're so different that yes, you know that the person did them, but that's also another way of seeing like an auteur. But
how the hell would I know that Steven Spielberg made Lincoln and Indiana Jones? Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you look at those two movies and be like, this is so obviously both Steven Spielberg? No, like don't. I don't think you can, right? Or even something like how much is Raging Bull really like Goodfellas? You
Correct.
know, where it's like, dude, this is so obviously him, you know, like to the casual audience. I'm sure what I'm saying right now is blasphemous to like the Letterboxd heads, you know, but not everybody is a weirdo online film person. So I think even so many people have probably seen these John Carpenter movies and don't even realize it either. Like, oh, I like They Live and I do like Halloween. Like, that's the same guy. Or like, how could you even understand that Assault on Precinct 13th and Halloween are like from the same guy? You know, and like he's so distinct. Like He's really like a one-of-a-kind director, honestly. Little trolling. Michael Myers wearing the sheet. So funny.
I like that.
I just like that he tries to get somewhat creative with his kills.
He's silly.
But he's unstoppable. He will get you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, take a lesson from Michael Myers. Never give up.
He
always get to your goal as long as you walk.
Or you got a year, he'll be back next Halloween.
I will say maybe it's the fact that he is a 21 years old, that this original one. Yeah, and then maybe now when we're seeing it, we're seeing him, you know, in the new ones, he's kind of let more of the demon take over because he's getting older. So that's why he's a little bit more bloody, you know. In the beginning, he's just 21. He's kind of getting the taste of it, you know, like the first killers, kind of seeing what's up.
It's just about getting them done, actually. Yeah, right. He's just trying to prove himself as a young. He
only had two objectives being locked up: was learn how to drive, apparently, and know how to kill somebody. Yeah, those were the two things he learned.
This was a training course for him. You know what I mean? It's like, let me test the waters of this serial killer game.
Exactly.
Let me see if I can get it down. And then after this, it's just off the rails. Right?
Yeah, because I mean, in this, we talked about it. Like, you know, people had the doors unlocked. You know, they had two doors, didn't lock both of them. Windows were open, you just break them. No, but things got harder later. So, you know, he had to get someone with the demon in.
I mean, we go from
he's a G, dude.
We go from smuggling or strangling a lady. It's not smuggling. Strangling a lady in a car to getting people to actually shoot themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's leveled up, dude. I feel like it's like a MLB The Show card. Like
now
he's 99 diamond now. You know what I mean?
He like socks people and like their head comes off. Like he's just strong as fuck.
Yeah, literally like a beast from the X-Men. Like if he socked you, your head would just turn around. You know what I mean?
He's an animal, dude. I mean, and you got to think like Jason had his mom do everything for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's some pussy shit. So.
This last one, it's like, it starts off like they tried burning him. And guess what? It didn't work. You know what? Even his clothes didn't burn. That's how good.
You didn't even need to get a new jumpsuit. You have to see this.
I might watch it tonight.
If Ro has to see Malignant, you have to see Halloween Kills.
That's fine.
It's a fair trade.
There's no way that's a fair trade.
I'm just trying to make it easier on Ro.
You can't put those in the same fucking category.
I don't want this, and I'm not wishing this on anybody, but if the backlash finally comes because Ro doesn't like Malignant, that would be like...
That'd be kind of funny.
That would be funny.
I don't want it to happen, but it could, you know? I mean, you're poking the beast here, dude.
I don't know.
Malignant was in the that thing that the Snyder Cut was in. That Oscars fan favorite
thing. Great convincing point.
I'm saying, but it was rightfully there. It wasn't a bunch of bots. Like, so people, you know, look at the list, man. People respect Malignant. I think you will too. I think you'll open your eyes. Open that third eye, Doctor Strange.
Why are we talking about Malignant?
I'm getting tired of talking about Halloween. Honestly. Wrap it all right. Smash all those buttons, right, Nate?
Yep, smash them all. And lock your fucking doors, dude. Michael Myers on the loose.
Okay, who do you think out of the three of us likes this the most? Because I know I like this the least.
I don't know. I like it.
Is it up there for you guys?
What's your rate? What's your rating
like a
on
top
it?
15, 20 movie for you?
Oh, no.
It's like, this is one of your favorite movies of all time.
No.
This is not one of my favorite movies of all time.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like at 1 in 5 people, this is probably in their top.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
One day we will discuss our top movies, but this is not in my top movies.
This will not be on that list.
Yeah.
That might be when I have another baby or something.
I mean, like
We need to kill some time.
But yeah, I mean, no, I which isn't a knockdown on it for sure. There's just so many good movies, like,
all right.
like really,
Just-
really. Good.
I had to throw that out there because a lot of people, this is one of their favorites.
I agree with that statement. I do think if you were to go outside and you asked 10 people, probably the least 3 of them would be in it.
All right, for sure. So, I mean, I enjoyed this conversation, and I definitely enjoyed the movie the more I see it. I think
it's
it gets
good
a
one,
little bit
man.
better every time.
I think you throw it on Halloween with some friends or whoever, and I always think that it
Catch me in
hits.
5 years. I might be like, yo, I was tripping.
I was wrong.
Check the Rob Zombie ones.
Hey,
I'm
peace
telling
and
you.
love and respect, man. I do actually appreciate this movie, and I know we do as a whole. So I do think it was a good entry for our showdown, and it had its rightful place in the Elite Eight. But yeah, I think that's it for us, right? I'm pretty toasted from talking about this movie.
Yep.
All
That's
right,
about
guys.
it, y'all.
Smash all those buttons.
Have a
You already
good
know
one.
the deal.
Bye.